Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Rajiv S. Khanna from immigration.com, the law offices of Rajiv S. Khanna, PC. This is our bi weekly, every other Thursday community conference call. Today is February 11th, 2016. People post their questions on one particular side of the forum, and you can post your questions there. Today, as was the last week also, last time also, I couldn't take new questions. I will not have time for new questions. But of course, we will deal with all the questions that have been posted and any follow ups on those questions, but no new questions. If you need to tweet to me while we are talking, I'm also watching my Twitter feed. Twitter is, you can go to our tweets from immigration.com on the right hand side or the forums on the right hand side. Our Twitter feed is there. You can tweet to us from there. My Twitter handle is immigration.com. Immigration.com. Okay. So let's get started. First, we will do the frequently asked questions, what I consider to be frequently asked question. First one is from Surab, who says it's about traveling on EAD, advanced parole, H4, etc. He says, I have my EAD and I have my H4. Which one should I be using if I travel out of the country? Well, first of all, when you travel out, you don't need any special permission. But when you travel back into the USA, you need a special permission. That permission is either your advanced parole or your visa. Okay, either your advanced parole or your visa. And in case your visit outside the United States is to what is referred to in immigration law as, well, actually in geography as well, contiguous territories, which is if you go to Canada or Mexico and your trip is less than 30 days, you can re-enter USA on your I-94. That's called automatic visa revalidation. So once again, going out of the US, you don't need anything, but to come back into the United States, you need one of the following three things. You either need a parole, such as an advanced parole, or a visa stamp on your passport, um, or if it is less than 30 days to Mexico, Canada, I think Virgin Islands as well. Less than 30 days, you can enter on your um, I-94. Unless you are a citizen of few countries, I forgot, I think it's like 5 or 6 countries. I think Syria is one of them. Then you have to get a visa stamping. But other countries like India, Pakistan, China, um, you can just travel on your I-94 if you go to Canada or Mexico for less than 30 days. So you don't need EAD to enter the US. EAD is to work, not to enter. Uh, will there be any problem at the port of entry because I have both? So you have an H4 and you have an EAD. They are not mutually exclusive. But here is what happens. See, there are two kinds of EADs. If your EAD is the H4 EAD, obviously there is no problem. But if your EAD is from your 485, it's a little bit more interesting. Now what happens is, if you have been using your EAD, okay, you are no longer considered to be in H4. However, if you have an H4 visa stamp and your H4 approval is still valid, you can come into the United States using that visa and you are back on H4. So when you enter, you can enter either on H4 visa or advanced parole. You have both options. That's the way it works. Guys, anybody has any question on um, entering the United States on H4 advanced parole? Press *5. Once again, I remind those people who just logged in, unfortunately, I will not have time for new questions. Okay, we'll just be dealing with posted questions and follow-ups on the posted questions. Sorry about that. No new questions today. Uh, so no questions on traveling on EAD, advanced parole, etc. Let's go on to the next frequently asked question. This is from Sudeep Raj, who says, does changing jobs require restarting the green card process? So he says, I've not studied much about the new rule. Um, the employer has agreed to my relocation, be doing the same job, do I have to start the whole perm I-140 process again? And the answer is yes. Even under the new rules, you cannot escape the necessity of refiling your perm. Uh, uh, the only time you are protected is, let's break it down. Let me make it more systematic. At what point can you leave your employer and go to another employer and carry some benefits with you from the green card that you had already started? Let's examine it like that. So if you leave before you file your I-140 or I-140 is approved before that, possibility is you carry nothing with you. If I-140 is not filed, you carry nothing. Okay. But if the I-140 is pending and subsequently approved, you at least will be able to carry your priority date. So far, that is what we believe. So POM approved, you leave before I-140 filing, you get nothing. POM approved, I-140 approved, you get your priority date. Under the new regulations, POM approved, I-140 approved, not revoked for 180 days. You can also use the I-140, previously approved I-140 to extend your H-1 beyond 6 years. As under the new considered regulations. This is not the law yet. This is being considered. So depending upon what stage you leave, you may or may not be able to carry any benefit to the next job of the green card that you have processed. However, if the I-140 is approved and 485 has been pending 180 days, you can go to same or similar job anywhere and be able to have to be able to carry your green card forward without having to redo it. So if your 485 has been pending 180 days after, well, not after, but I-140 is approved, you carry your whole green card process forward with you to the new job as long as the job is same or similar. Okay. So one of your corollary question is, does it mean if I change project and go to a different location with the same employer, I need to start the perm? Well, that depends. You see, when about, I would say, I think 1984 is when the Department of Labor announced a General Administrative Letter, GAL, in which they said, look, our regulations may not accommodate for this, but because we are in a service economy, when a job is subject to periodic relocation to unanticipated places, we consider that job to be located in the corporate headquarters. So when your perm is filed, if it has been made clear on the perm that the job requires frequent travel or relocation, um, you can then use the corporate headquarters as quote unquote your virtual office, no matter where you are located. So if the job is in, let's say, New Jersey, or let me rephrase that, the corporate headquarters in New Jersey, but you are working today in New Jersey, 6 months later you're working in Chicago, 8 months later you're working in California. If the perm has been properly filed, and most lawyers I think know how to do this, if the perm has been properly filed, then your movement does not require any great changes in your green card process. That goes on. But your H1, of course, would require amendments. Okay. Sudeep ji, if you are on the phone and you have any follow-up questions, or anybody has a follow-up question on what I have discussed, press *5. Once again, I remind people who just logged in, I will not have time for new questions. Any follow-up questions on this? Okay. Let's go on to the next frequently asked question. Returning to H1 after I-485 EAD. So this is a question that comes up quite frequently, and it's another easy question to answer. Let us say I'm on H1. I have 1.5 years left. In the meantime, my I-485 was filed. I've got my EAD. Now I have two work authorizations. I can use my EAD or I can use my H1. For some reason, whether the employer required it or I need to be moved and the employer didn't want to do H1 amendment, I start using my EAD. Does that mean my H1 is gone forever? Not at all. I still have, let's say, after 6 months of EAD, I still have 1 year of H1 left. If I have a visa stamp, I leave USA and come back using my H1 visa, I'm back on H1. And if I continue working under the terms of my H1, I will be considered to be back on H1. So by using the EAD, you do not lose an existing H1 or the right to file a new H1. You can revive your H1 by just going outside USA and coming back using H1 visa stamp, even if you have been using EAD. If you come back in and start using EAD again, you can then again revive your H1 by the same process. I hope that makes it clear. Anybody has a follow-up question on this issue, press *5 on your telephone. No new issues, please. I'm also following my Twitter feed, Immigration Calm. Okay, no questions. Let's go on to the next frequently asked question. So this is from Hema, who talks about birth certificates, affidavits of birth, non-availability certificates, secondary evidence. Guys, the normal rule in actually even in court, as it is before USCIS, State Department, Department of Labor, there are two categories of evidence. So if I have to prove something, I can prove it either by primary evidence or through secondary evidence. I'll give you two examples of that. Both of them are important. They come up very frequently. One example is birth certificate. Especially in family-based cases, if I'm applying for my mom or my dad, they were born in the Stone Age and we don't have any papers from that time because we didn't used to have birth certificates then. So how do I prove their birth? If I use anything other than their original birth certificate, that will be called secondary evidence. Another example is in the employment-based green cards, we need experience letters. Oftentimes, we cannot get experience letters from companies that we used to work for. And at that time, we can provide affidavits or letters from our old supervisors or people who used to work with us to prove what we did. That's called secondary evidence. Whenever you want to put forward secondary evidence to prove something, you should first prove that the primary evidence is not available. Okay. So for example, in birth certificate cases, it is important to get a letter from the local government of the place an individual was born. For example, if you were born in let's say Shanghai or New Delhi or Moscow, we would want a letter from the local authorities. In case of New Delhi, it will be municipal corporation or whatever the local government is called, that says in our register of births, there is no record for Mr. XYZ, your dad or your mom. So that's called non-availability. It really is not a term that is very technical. It basically just means certificate of birth is not available. Now what you've done is you've proven to the government that primary evidence, which is birth certificate, is not available. Now you can give secondary evidence, and in birth certificate cases, it's affidavits from two people who were alive when the family member was born. They don't have to be adults when they were born. Who were alive when the person in question was born. You can use that. In employment context, you should be able to document, you tried to get experience letters, you were not able to, and therefore you're giving affidavits or letters from co-workers or supervisors. That's how the primary evidence, secondary evidence works. Sometimes we have to go to tertiary evidence, which is also called secondary evidence. So for instance, what if my father was born way back then, and there's nobody left who's alive when he was born? I would go to other things. One easy way to do it is, if it is mother, doing a DNA test is very easy. So going back to Hema's question, My sister filed green card application for my father. He's in India. He has an affidavit from his cousin who is older than him and a school leaving certificate in Malayalam. He does not have a birth certificate, and we are having trouble getting the non-availability. Do you see any issues during his interview? Yes, there can be, but remember, these are not rules cast in stone. Even if there are difficulties, and as long as you've tried your very best, I would go as far as to say I could probably get a declaratory judgment from a local court proving the date of birth. If necessary, you could go that route. Look into that, getting a judgment from a court about what his date of birth is. Okay, that would be very good secondary evidence in your circumstances. And it's really not that difficult to get that. So look into that. Hemaji, if you are on the phone and you still have questions, press star 5. Star 5 if you have any questions. Folks, I noticed some new people logged in. I will not have time for new questions today. I'm very sorry. I think what has happened is that usually we used to cut questions off at 18, but these days they've been going to 25, sometimes even 30. That doesn't leave me room to take up new questions. I would love to, but we don't have time for new questions. So let's go back. Let's go to the next frequently asked question, E3. E3 visa is the Australian equivalent of an H1 visa. So if you are a citizen of Australia, you don't have to be born in Australia. If you're a citizen of Australia, I see there's a hand up. I'll get to that in 1 second. You do something called E3 visa. Let me take the upraised hand. Remember, I will not be doing any new questions, just follow-ups. Follow-ups on what I've discussed. Okay. Connecticut, go ahead, please, Connecticut. Okay, they got disconnected. All right, I just saw you drop the line. Okay, so talking about E3 visas, they are the equivalent of an H1 in many ways. So he says, Ramit says, I'm an Australian citizen born in India, currently in USA working on E3 visa. Can I file green card? Yes, you can. And E3 is not forbidden, unlike tourist visas or J visas or F visas, student visas. You're not forbidden to file a green card. You can file a green card. What are the options? Well, same options as anybody has, including H1 holders or L1 holders. Well, L1 people might have more options, but anybody who's got H1 has the same options as E3, or anybody holding an E3 has the same options. So you could go through PERM. If you qualify through EB1A or EB1B, you could go through those. So most likely PERM is what people do. If I change employers, do I have to do E3 visa again, or can I apply for change of employer? Well, first of all, when you are changing employers, you have to do some processing. Now, if you want to do it quickly, you could go out, get an E3 visa stamp and come back in again. If you want to do it within USA, you could do E3 change of employers, which is like filing a new petition all over, but it requires you to only file certain papers and you don't have to travel. So anybody has a question on E3 visas, press star 5. Star 5. Okay. Let's go on to the next frequently asked question. So one of the questions that we are asked often is, what do I do after my 6 years of H1 are completed? Chaitanya says the same thing. He says, I have 6 months left on my current H1B, plus another year, depending upon my employer renewing my H1B. If I use up all my time, do I have to leave? Or can I change to F1 or H4? You can change to F1, you can change to H4, but that will not reset your clock. If you want to get 6 years of H1 back again, you have to be physically outside the United States for 1 year. Okay. So are there any other options? Chaitanya ji, some people do F1 and CPT, curricular practical training. If you go to my blog, I think one of the last 2-3 entries, there is a write-up about RFEs that you get when you try to convert from CPT to H1 again. So be aware of those issues, but CPT is another option. Some people go on to O1 visas who are extraordinarily qualified. Um, some people, you already know that part, which is H4. H4 EAD is an option if your wife, or in case of a female spouse, if your husband has an I-140 approved. So being on H1 6 years does not foreclose conversion to H4. Anybody has a follow-up question on this issue, press star 5. Star 5. Okay. Um, let's see who it is. I have one raised hand, and this is from Texas. Texas, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Hi, hi Rajesh. This is Arun from Texas, San Antonio, Texas.
Yes, sir.
Uh, I have a question. I have a H-1B visa, but I stayed here for 3 years, and then I went back to my country after 3 years after applying extension, and I stayed in outside of US for more than a year, and then I came back to US, continuing the same H-1B visa. So is that mean will the cap will be reset and I will be allowed to be here for another 6 years, or is it going to be just the recapture time even if I stay more than a year outside the country?
In
Thank you.
your case, it looks like you have used what is called the remainder option. Let me explain to you what this means. So you were in the US for 3 years, then you left and you were outside USA for 1 year. When you apply for an H1 to come back to USA, you have two choices. Either you can choose to recapture your 6 years, what is called resetting, reset your 6 years, but then you'll be subject to the quota. Or you can choose to take the remaining 3 years of your 6 years of H1, then you will not be subject to the quota, but you will have only 3 years, not six. Okay? Hello?
Okay, so I need to take the decision. My employer needs to have taken the decision when I came back. Is
Right,
that what you said?
right. They
Right?
probably took the remainder option and you were not subject to the quota. If you start your green card process, you can keep extending your H1 for a very long time, indefinitely almost. So that may be the way to go. Okay?
Okay. So it needs to be done when I recapture. When I enter to US
No,
back
no,
after 1 year.
no. When they file your H1 for you to re-enter USA, that's when they make that decision.
Okay.
Okay,
So okay, it needs to come under scope. Okay. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Okay, let's go on to the next frequently asked question. Extending B2 visa for my dependent parent. See, this is also a very common issue. Let's say I'm here on an H1 or even a green card, and my mom lives in uh, our home country, and she's got nobody to take care of there. Many times, government will allow me to keep extending that B2 visa almost indefinitely, or B2 status. I have many cases like this where we have a couple of examples that come to mind. One example was this couple whose the guy's dad was in India, and they were very severely diabetic, and I think had some diabetic retinopathy. Eyesight had gone bad, and the couple was both physicians. So we were able to show to the government that if he goes back, he doesn't have any family. In India, girls are gone to their own homes. They will not um, be around to take care of the father, and the sons, traditionally the eldest son takes care of the father. So even though the good doctor is on H1, and even though uh, dad is not going to get H4 because H4 is not one of the covered relationships, only spouses and children are covered. So then government kept giving us B2 extensions, and that went on even after they got the green card. After the couple got their green card, dad was still maintaining B2. It happened for, I think, many years. I don't remember exactly what the details were, but we did it several times. I remember that. So the question here is, I am on H1B, wife on H4, sister and brother-in-law on H1B, mom 56 is on B2 and visiting us. Can I extend? And the answer is, well, if you can make a case before the government that she's got nobody there and I want to extend the status as long as you will allow it, if we make that case, you should be able to extend it. But there's a downside. If it is denied, or if after one or two extensions it is denied, then she should stay away at least for 1 year after she leaves USA before she comes back in. Okay. Any question on this B2 status? Press star 5. Any question on this B2 status? Press star 5. Okay, once again, I remind you, I have some people who just logged in. We won't have time for new questions. My apologies. We have enough questions here that will take all my time. Okay, no questions. Let's go on to the next frequently asked question. Once we're done with the frequently asked questions, we'll start the new questions. Start the other questions. So here's another interesting question. I am going through EB1C category, which is International Manager's Green Card. If there's a change in project, what happens? Well, first of all, there's a difference between L1A, L1B, EB1C. So L1s on one side and EB1C on the other. Because L1s are for a job that is in your hand right now. EB1 can be a job that we intend to give you once you get your green card, sort of like a future job. So therefore, what you do currently is only subject to your L1. That might need amendment. But your EB1C can go on as long as the job that you'll be offered when you get your green card is substantially in line with what we have filed with the government. So that's the way it works. Okay. How soon are I-140s adjudicated? Your guess is as good as mine. Government has released some times. Are those times accurate? No. Is government bound to first in, first out? No. They loosely go by first in, first out, but there have been many, many cases where even courts have said that government is not bound to first in, first out. There are too many variables in individual cases. Okay, follow up on this, press star 5. Once again, no new questions. Follow up on this, star 5. Okay, no follow-ups. I think that's all the frequently asked questions. Now let's get started with the other question. We did this one. So VSS 1 to 3, I'm on H1B, I-140 is approved, EB3. My son is autistic, 17 years, living in the US for the last 6 years on H4 visa. His IQ is still around 8 years old. When he reaches 21, can I still keep him on H4? The answer is no. But yours is also a typical case where B2, which I talked about just a minute ago, is a very a good option. Because this child has nobody else to take care of him. And even though he is 21 or 22 or even 30, he needs you to take care of him. And we actually have a case like this where, and that's also an autistic child. Their story is mother has a green card, father lives outside of India. So we have been extending the child's B visa because he's got nowhere to go. He can't go to India. Father can't take care of him. Mother is the only one who can take care of him. And she's got her green card. So in cases like this, there's a good likelihood that you'll be able to get B2 extension. Okay, so just go to B2, change to B2 status, file it before the child turns 21, and I think you can pretty much hope for it. There's a chance that you'll be able to get your B2, and then you can keep extending that. Unfortunately, government has not yet done this consistently. This particular item that I'm going to talk about, they've not given us a year-to-year extension, which is what they should be doing. You have to keep extending every 6 months. Okay. Any question on this? Press star 5. Okay. Next question is also from VSS 123. Males are required to do military service. So what do we do with this child when his passport expires? This is an issue that I really cannot comment about. I haven't studied it in detail. But I had a client from Greece many years ago. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Turkey, many years ago. In Turkey, there's a requirement that you've got to do military service. And that gentleman, who was an engineer, decided not to do that because there were certain elements in the military that were very unpalatable to him. So we were able to get his green card as well as travel documents, etc., from the government. I don't remember how exactly we did it, but have your lawyers look into it. It may be possible to get some kind of travel documents from the US government in a case where service is not possible. But if the child is autistic, as in your case, why cannot the government of your home country give an exception? That's another thing to look at. Okay. Any follow-up questions on this issue? Press star 5, please. Star 5. Okay. Let's go on to the next question. It's A and V. Currently on H1B in Minnesota for a client. Original petition was filed for Illinois. So as per the Simeo Solutions decision, amendment should have been filed, but has not been filed. So now what do we do? So according to the employer, you need to exit USA and then only they'll file your petition. And I can understand that. I think that appears to be the cleanest option for the employer. Is it the cleaner option for you? I think you're stuck with the situation. Either leave this employer, go somewhere else, or go with what they suggest, which is your case will be filed as a visa stamping case, not as a change of status case. Can you go to that location back and does that reset? I don't think so. I don't think going back to the location where you're approved is going to fix this. Okay. Star 5 if you have any question on this issue. Star 5 if you have any question on this issue. Okay, so I would say change employers, go outside. Those are the two obvious options. Nad from Virginia says, 485 was denied for my parents in April 2014. I-485 based on being the beneficiary of I-130 petition for alien relative that was filed by its son, that is you. They departed the United States while the 485 was pending, and then the advance parole expired. They have not returned. So can they use the B1, B2? And the answer is maybe. I'll tell you why I said maybe. First of all, until that B1, B2 is cancelled, that B1, B2 is valid. However, when they land at the airport, it is up to the Customs and Border Protection to allow or not allow them entry. They should allow because the green card is no longer active, but definitely the CBP officer could take the position that having applied for a green card, they have exhibited immigrant intent, so I'm not going to let them in. They have to return back. Would I try it? I think I would. If they have a B1, B2 which is currently on the passport, I don't see any problem in using that. Star 5, if there is a follow-up question on this, star 5. Press star 5. Okay. Let's go on to the next question. Ajitesh says, I came to USA in H1B in 2007. 5 years I stayed here. 2012 I left. Started my green card process in August 2010. I-140 is already approved. Can I use the same H1 to enter USA through a different company? And the answer is, I think so. You were here for 5 years. So you could probably use the remainder option in this manner, that I am entitled to 3 plus 1, actually 4 years of H1, but I just want 3 years of H1. based upon my I-140 approval, and I am not subject to the quota. I would argue that, although I'm not sure that's really applicable. I think you may be subject to the quota. It's a very complicated situation, very difficult to analyze the situation. You can, of course, be subject to the quota and come back for 6 years because you've been outside USA for more than 1 year. So, and remember, you can get 3-year extension through any employer if you have an I-140 approved and it's not revoked. So all these options exist. They need to be examined. The real two variables in your case are, am I subject to the quota or not? That depends upon the choices you make. I think you are subject to the quota. Two, but actually if you use remainder option, maybe not. Okay. And two, one was the quota. Two is how long can I come back for? Is it 3 years based upon the I-140 or 6 years? I would probably claim to be exempt from the quota using the remainder option. Earlier in this conversation, I've spoken of it. If you rewind back and there's a list of questions here. Somebody else asked me, it was a frequently asked question. So I talked about the remainder option. You should be exempt from the quota, okay? And you should get 3 years based upon the I-140. That's my guess. Star 5, if anybody has a follow-up question on this issue, star 5. Okay. Soha says, I-140 approved with employer A, moved to B, got my I-140 approved with company B recently. When I filed for my I-140 with company B, the priority date was to be ported. Now, can I move back to employer A? Why not? Why not? Employer A did not withdraw or revoke my I-140. Yeah, you can start from where you left off, but I'll come to one point that you should remember. If employer B withdraws my I-140, does that affect my original I-140? No, it does not. Even if the priority date was ported, priority date is not a perishing commodity. Priority date will remain valid with respect to the old case also. So even if the second I-140 is withdrawn, it neither affects the validity nor the priority date of the old I-140. Any other legal issues? Now, this is the part that is important. Even though green card is for a future job, but if the job ceases to exist even for 1 day, that green card cannot go forward. So if your job with employer A was still secure, somebody else was doing it, or it was distributed with other people, you are fine. You can go back to employer A. That's the only legal issue I see. Star 5, if you have follow-up question on this. Star 5, okay. Oh yeah, let's get that question. Indiana, go ahead, please, Indiana. Indiana.
Rajuji, first I have to be thankful for the service you are doing. I have a follow-up question on the same scenario. That's why I did not enter my original question. So I will put it in a short way. So I have 140 approved from company A, and then the same situation, but in case of company B, I don't have any 140 yet. They have filed my H1, and it is in a regular process receipt.
Okay.
So, and now we come to know, because this has all happened because company A sold out company B. That's why. So the company B has no policy of handling H1s and green cards. So now I have a choice of going back to company A if there is a position open. The thing here is my H1 is still valid until July, and my 140 is still open from company A.
Okay.
So will there be any issue if I move back to company A? Because I have only a receipt now and I'm working with company B now and they're not willing to move forward. I mean, it's a regular, I'm requesting for a premium processing, but they're not willing. So will there be an issue if I move to company A, having a receipt open for company B, and company A has everything. I mean, they have my H1 still valid until July and my 140 is still open.
There are two sets of issues here. One deals with the H1 and the other one deals with the green card. As far as the green card is concerned, that part is quite clear. As long as the job did not cease to exist, the fact that, or even it can be argued that the job was a future job. So I think there are several ways. If there is a problem the I-140 can be approached, and I think you'll be okay on that front. The H1 could be a little bit trickier issue. Can you use the H1 that was not withdrawn? And my answer is maybe. If you had asked me this question about a month ago, I would have said probably not. You cannot use that H1, even though it is good till July. If you had asked me that same question 4 years ago, I would have said absolutely, because USCIS was saying you can. In between, they became more uncertain about it. But then I've seen something in the new regulations or in one of the memoranda that said that you can, it implied that you can use this H1. One easy way to settle this is to just contact US customer service, USCIS customer service, and have your lawyers ask them the question and write down what they say with the date and the time. Usually they'll get an adjudication officer, a senior adjudication officer for questions like this. I think under the current interpretations of the USCIS, you could probably use that H1. But if you want to be absolutely plain black and white, just do another H1 and go back to them. Okay.
Right. So I mean, my intention is not to use the same H1, but because I have my labor and 1/4 approved with company A, that is a big advantage I see if I get a position back there, so that I can reuse everything. I don't have to go through everything again with a different company. But in that process, if they are going to file a new H1, for example, because company B has a receipt where there is no
But that
QES,
doesn't
so the
matter.
process still going on.
That doesn't matter. H1s,
Okay.
as in geometry, are like parallel lines. They can proceed simultaneously, and never shall the two meet. You can have 50 H1s going through different companies at the same time. That's not an issue.
Right. Yeah. Because one scenario I see from one of my friends is like they got a query about what is happening with the H1 that you have from the company B. So in my case, I still have my I-94 valid from company A, and I have a visa until July. So if I switch, this receipt should not impact me on the new H1, right? For company
Not at
A.
all. No issue at all.
And and one other thing that I came to know recently is just 2 weeks back is when they filed my H1 in company B, they did not file my wife's H4, but I just want to check that to here on this note. So, but we still have our I-94 valid until July
Yeah,
this
that's
year.
fine.
So,
She's good till
so I
July.
don't have to file.
Yeah, apply for her H4 extension. You can do it on any of the pending cases or any of the new cases as long as you get it filed before July. I see no problem with it.
Okay, so until July she has I-94, so she don't have to file the H4 now based on the receipt number I have from company B, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome, sir. Good luck.
And if I,
Yeah.
thank you. And one last thing, I thank you for all the time. So, in case if nothing works out with company A, and if I have to move out to company C, in my situation, I have to move because company B is not willing to continue my green card processing or anything. So, in that case, I know they have to file my H1, but will I get that H1 for the remaining period, like this 6 months, or will they get it 3 years based on the 140 that I have from company A?
USCIS is inconsistent about how much time they give you, but you are entitled to 3 years of um, H1 if your I-140 is approved and not revoked. So I would definitely shoot for 3 years.
Okay, sir.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Somebody else has a question on this. Let me get to that. Iowa, go ahead. Iowa, please go ahead.
Hi Roger, this is Soha.
Hi.
Poster.
Yes, sir. I
So
see you.
I just want to clarify. So if I go back to company A, I don't have to start the process again, right? Because
That
I
is
have the 140
that is
approved.
that is correct. As long as
Even
the job was not extinguished, the job is still around. I don't see any problem. By the way, we do this all the time. I have seen this done. I've done this many times. I've never had a problem. Only time once I had a problem. That was about 15 years ago, in a case out of Chicago, I still remember it. We had a problem. I've talked about this case before, where I don't know if you remember or if you know the ERP software called JD Edwards. That was kind of being phased out, so the employee had to kind of get experience in other kinds of ERP, PeopleSoft, Oracle Financials, and I think SAP. So we were able to explain why the employee had to be gone for 2 years and then come back to the same employer. But that question has never been raised again. I've done so many of these cases. I think you'll be fine.
Okay, so even though my company B revoke my 140,
No
it should
problem.
be fine, right? Because I already have already 140 with A.
No problem, sir.
Okay.
All right.
And
Take your time.
E,
Take your time. Collect your thoughts. I'm not in a hurry.
yeah, sure. Give me 1 minute.
I can even put you on hold. Take the next question. It's not a problem if you need some extra time.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. I'll leave the line open. If you think of it, just attract my attention. Okay. Let us see. So we have just you. Let's go to the next question. Bala says, my friend got an approved petition in 2007, good till 2010. So I think it's an H1 we are talking about, and he got a 221G. H1B visa was not stamped. Under the current thinking of USCIS, if your visa is not stamped, if you're outside USA, you are still subject to the H1 quota. Right or wrong, I would definitely want your friend to try it. I think that the USCIS interpretation in this regard is legally flawed because the law does not require a visa to be stamped. Nevertheless, that's what they have been telling us. I don't remember how many cases like this we've done before, but I think it's worth a shot. So go ahead and try it. Okay. So did you think of something?
Yeah, Rajiv, yeah. So the question is, with the new rules in place, I don't know what exactly the rule is, but something like 180 days after 140 getting approved, 180 days. So does it affect anything? I don't know exactly the rule.
No. If anything, it gives you more rights, not less. The new rule will give you more rights, not less. So don't worry about it. The rule is actually explained in my blog. If you go to my blog and read up, I have annotated the entire regulation. You should be able to see what the new rule is. Once it is published, then I will explain it in detail. I don't want to spend a lot of time until the rule is published. Okay?
Sure, thank you.
Good luck. Okay, so after Bala, we've got Katraj. Priority date is October 2008, EB2. Got my second EAD renewed. Okay, EAD renewed, I'm a second EAD. Changed to new employer, filed AC21. So the wife has an RFE. Is this something I need to worry about? Nah. Even though the date is not current, well, that's not a problem. Is it because I changed my employer? No. Working off the USCIS is mighty mysterious. Don't worry about it. The G325A form has a problem. Medicals have a problem. The places where I have to fill employment history, the size of the box doesn't fit my employer name. I abbreviate those, and if necessary, just put an attachment saying that the full name of the employer is this. The place where we list the prior addresses, last 5 years doesn't provide space or more than 5. I just normally what I do is when I'm filling the form, I haven't filled a form in years, but we can just say see attachment in the last row and then put an attachment with a table similarly made, and that way you can accommodate it. Okay. Wife received an RFE for G28 and medicals. What are the G325A? I'm confused. You said G28 or G325? G28 is for a lawyer. If you have a lawyer, they will file a G28. G325A is the form. that is used for your, in this case, your wife's background checks. One part of it goes to FBI. Okay, so that's called biographic information sheet or something like that. Okay, that should answer your questions. If any follow-up questions, press *5, please. Any follow-up questions, Katraj? Okay. Mr. Muhammad says, I recently applied, or Miss Muhammad, I think it's Mr. Muhammad, recently applied for I-130 for my parents. I forgot to put in the correct information in section D about whether you filed for another person. The answer was yes, but I put in a no. I want to make the correction. The easy thing to do is contact USCIS customer service, explain to them what has happened, make a note of the date and the time you called them and what they told you. I don't think this is a major issue. Can I submit remaining application 485 using the file number? Yes, you can. If you file I-130 first or I-140 for employment-based cases and the priority dates are current, in your case, Mr. Muhammad, they are current, you can file 485 at any time. You don't have to wait for the I-130 approval. I usually do the two together because it's really difficult to get a denial. It can happen, but it's really difficult to get a denial on immediate relatives of US citizens cases like mom, dad, or children or spouse. These are easy cases to get processed. Any questions? Press *5, please. Any follow-up questions on this? Press *5. Okay. Rajesh says, applied green card for my parents on my own. Priority date is October 2015. Biometrics are done. AP approved. Case is ready to be scheduled for an interview. 4 months, it has not been scheduled. How long does it take to actually schedule the interview? Well, first of all, do not be surprised if that interview notice is a mistake. USCIS makes mistakes all the time. Typically, parents are usually not interviewed in green card cases. So first thing you should do is contact your congressman's office, ask them to contact USCIS to make sure this is not an error. Sometimes they make mistakes. In at least 1 out of the last 3 cases we have processed in the last 2 months, they had made this mistake, and when we had the case followed up, they withdrew the notice and approved the green card. In one case, they wanted to meet up with the parents. In the third case, they had to bring the mom in because her fingerprints were not clear, and they had an alternate method for establishing her identity. Okay. If AP is approved, they can travel, and there is no effect on the green card processing unless they are scheduled for an interview. They should come back and interview. Interviews can be rescheduled once or twice if there's a good reason. I recommend not to do it. If the green card gets approved while you are traveling on advance parole, you can still re-enter USA on advance parole. And at the airport, they know that your green card has been approved. They'll let you in. Okay. *5 if there's a follow-up question. *5. Okay. Next question is from Parmadit. I'm not sure what that name is. PA. Sister is a US citizen, filed for family-based green card for my mother. We submitted an affidavit of birth and both a birth certificate from her birthplace and 2 sworn affidavits. We just talked about it. Because the name was missing from her birth certificate. Okay. So we have not received any RFE. There's a discrepancy in the date of birth. All these issues can be resolved. Okay, don't worry too much about it. When the time comes, if there is an RFE, get in touch with a lawyer, get their help. It depends upon the kind of RFE. You need a police clearance because her fingerprints were not clear. See, everything, problem is this level of detail I usually don't get involved with. Um, our team here is very efficient with those things. But typically, I have never seen procedural issues to become lethal against a case. They always work out, one way or the other. Get a congressman involved, they can help. So there are things you can do. Star 5 if there's a question. Star 5. Okay. Namrata says, I'm working with company A since 2007, EB2 green card filed. I'm not using my EAD, using H1B. RFE for employment confirmation and medical already responded to. RFE is still open. Can I change jobs now? Sure you can. Sure you can. See, on the date you responded to USCIS, your RFE was correctly responded to. I would change jobs using H1B, not EAD. Same or similar? Yes, because you want to go through the AC21. The problem, Namrataji, is this. Since the new regulations are not yet in effect, we think you'll be okay as long as the jobs are same or similar, but keep it as close to same as you can. If you go from a technical to a managerial position, I don't know how it's going to play out. Under the newer regulations that are supposed to one of these days get passed, promotions I think are acceptable. I'll have to see the final language, what it looks like. But under the current thinking, the closer you are to the same nature of job rather than similar, the better off you are. Star 5 for any follow-up questions on this. Star 5, please. Press star 5. Okay. ND back in Feb 2001 got a marriage-based green card. Okay, see, the problem is you definitely need to get together with a lawyer and a local lawyer. Okay, I cannot really help you because see, your 751 was denied in 2004. You should definitely speak with a local lawyer and somebody who's experienced. This is not something you should hire an out-of-town lawyer for typically, because this might involve some, see, 99% of the cases we can do from anywhere. But there are some cases where we prefer to have local counsel represent you. So get yourself a local lawyer. This is a very complicated situation. It can be untangled, but it's got to be done one thing at a time and locally. Okay? Good luck with that. Not much I can do for you. Mahendra for you says, I'm on L1B, completing my 5 years on L1B. They're going to file H1B for me. I'm planning to travel back after 365 days outside USA. Will my 5 years of stay in, see, once you're outside USA for 1 year, you have 6 years of H1 and you have 5 years of L1B or 7 years of L1A. Everything is reset. So, yes. They should file for H1B only after 1 year if you want all 6 years back. So there's no question about that. No, your question is whether for resetting of the clock, date of the filing matters or the date you travel matters. This particular instance where you are trying to reset the clock, date of filing is important. So you should not file until 1 year is completed. Many times we can file 6 months ahead, but not when the resetting of the clock is concerned. At least that's what I believe so far. I don't know what tomorrow brings. Okay. Star 5 if you have a follow-up question. Star 5. So okay, so just keep in mind it's the date of filing, in my view, that would be important. Vipul Bhatnagar says, I am on H1B visa with approved I-140. Wife is working on her own H1B. She wants to change to H4, then apply for H4 EAD. Okay, people do that. There's no guarantee whether H4 EAD will come together. In fact, many times they don't. Okay. When should she resign? She can resign when the H4 is received by USCIS, but she'll have no work authorization until the EAD is actually approved. Yeah, once you file the H4, you can give 2 weeks notice, no problem, because H4 is going to take many months to get approved. So no problem there. Can she travel to India for H1B currently and get H4 visa stamp? Sure, absolutely. That's a very fast option. Would it hurry up her EAD? I do not know, maybe. Times are very difficult to predict. I've talked about this in almost every call we've done. Times are impossible to predict. Don't ask me. Ask other people on the web. They can give you some idea. I don't think it's predictable. Follow-up questions, star 5. Follow-up questions, star 5. Okay. This is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, go ahead, please. Pennsylvania, we can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Rajiv. Rajiv, I'm calling from Pennsylvania. First of all, I want to thank you for the services that you are providing. I have the same question regarding the 2-week notice period. I heard there is called the effective date, which is related to the change of status.
No, wait.
So
The new H4 forms actually allow you to put down specific date you want. It didn't used to be like
Yes.
this. It didn't used to be like this.
Yeah.
Okay? So you can always
So
put.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. So I can put the immediate date as well as the future date.
I would rather put the future date because you're giving 2 weeks notice. So give date 15th day from the notice or 14th day from the notice.
So my follow-up thing is regarding the same effective date. So after the effective date means the EAD processing will start after that, or like if I'm applying for H4 and H4 EAD together and putting the effective date. So the EAD, like I'm giving a 2 months effective date. From now, I'm giving the 2 months more effective date. So the EAD processing will process after meeting the effective date, or it can happen parallelly.
I don't know. I don't know this question. I would probably make a call to the USCIS, see if I can get somebody knowledgeable to talk to me about it. I don't know how they deal with it. Sorry, no idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck. Okay, let's do the last question. Amit Kumar Nayak did his master's in USA, currently working, lottery not selected. He got onto H3 visa, which is very good. They are filing H1B again. H3 expires in May 9th. And I have also applied for college and work on CPT. My company does not allow working on CPT, so I'm looking for another job. Is it okay to transfer from H3 to F1? Yes. Before my company files for my H1B, or I shall wait until April till the documents are received and then transfer. No, I think you can have both going. I don't see any problem with that. You know, one can be withdrawn if the other gets into a good status for you. I don't see any problem with doing both together. Just be mindful of what needs to be withdrawn and what's successful. Okay, so if the H1 gets selected in the lottery and you're okay with it, you can probably withdraw your F1. Discuss it with your lawyers. They should be able to tell you, the H1 lawyers. Okay, star 5 if there's a follow-up question. Star 5. Okay, folks. Oh, there's one question. Let's just take that. This one is from New York. Okay, New York, go ahead, please. That's Naik. Yeah,
Hi,
that's
hi,
Mr.
Mr.
Naik.
Khanna. This is
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So yes, I have this on this. So yeah, now I do see a lot of H1B getting the RFE like questions on it, like what's going on and not. So if I apply, as per you, if I apply for my F1, start working on the savings and everything, and the USCIS is receive the documents for my H1. So during the RFE, will it cause any problem? Will I get an RFE for that, saying that this person is moving to F1 and then there is an H1B applying as well?
Well, I don't think what you are doing um, simultaneously is by itself an issue. I personally think that should be fine. The only difficult um, question is you applied for H3 to H1. You've also applied for
Mhm.
H3 to F1. Okay. So when the time comes to adjudicate H1, what if your F1 is already adjudicated? So you've got to kind of watch out for the times. What I would suggest is file the H1 premium processing. If you have to pay the filing fees yourself for the premium, do it. That way you can withdraw the F1 if that is what the time permits you to do. Because F1 takes a long time to process. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I can start working on my savings transfer and the H1.
That's right.
And then if I get my H1 up, yeah, if I get my H1 up,
Exactly.
I can just cancel the H1.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Khanna.
Good luck, sir. Call me Rajiv. Nobody calls me Mr. Khanna. Good luck to all of you guys. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. I have two raised hands. Let me see who else is there. Good luck, Mr. Naik.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, they hung up. Okay. All right. I will see you guys in 2 weeks, next to next Thursday. Thank you all for being here. I always enjoy talking with you. Bye-bye. Every other Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we host free community conference calls. Everybody is welcome to join. Some people post questions ahead of time. You can take membership in our forums. All of the details are there on our website, immigration.com. You can take membership ahead of time, and it's instantaneous. It happens right away. And post your questions beforehand, or you can just log in. The phone number and all are provided: 202-800-8394, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time every other Thursday. We have free apps for both Apple iOS platform for your iPhones and iPads, as well as for Android. Just look for immigration.com, the period dot, and the application should show up.